Hello there, Somatek is here, back with another podcast. It's the 20th of May. The podcast is called Only in Room 15B. Man, I butchered that one. Right, so it's Monday, so it's exam week. Exams have started, so I'm not going to school today. That's why I'm recording on a Monday. Right, so what do I want to talk about today? There is a big issue, right? There are small issues that we'll discuss later, not so important issues, but then there is other big issue, right? Probably not big issues. If you're a follower of people like Jordan Peterson and whatever, there is a rule that what's this? Fix your house before you criticize the world. What's the rule? But set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world, right? So that's why I'm reluctant in terms of making comments with issues regarding the world, mostly because I don't have enough information to even make the comments, and then also I think my life isn't going that well to have any comment about how other people are supposed to run their lives or even countries, right? But then there is another argument that will say, okay, your life will never be perfect, but maybe you'll be able to make a living, and whatever you're doing, I think that's how he explains it as well. Whatever you're doing will sort of affect the people closest to you, your family, your friends, and whatever, and then it tends to affecting the community, the broader province. If you're in South Africa, then the country, right? So here's my 2 cents. So today is the Monday, the 20th of May. I woke up today, watched Game of Thrones, and then I didn't go to social media before watching Game of Thrones because of the spoilers and whatever. So what has happened is, after that I read 2 articles. Was it 2 articles? Yeah, 2 articles, right? The first one was from Reuters. It's called Reuters. Man, I hate not having my phone. I hate recording with my phone because it means I can't use my phone to check the things that I want to check. Alright, but the article was from Reuters. Yeah, then there is this Reuter.com, I think, Reuter, right? It was discussing how Huawei has been stripped by the US government of any dealings with the US and the companies in the US. So everyone is sort of distancing themselves from Huawei. Man, damn it, I'm not sure if I talk too fast or whatever. My mouth just goes dry whenever I'm talking. I think it's this light as well. It's too much, right? So the US has blocked having companies having any ties with Huawei. It was not clear. I think it's not clear even now or about what this block necessarily entails, right? If you're saying no more dealings with Huawei, so companies like your Intel, they're sort of distancing themselves, and I think everyone right now is still not negotiating, evaluating the situation. How will it affect their business, right? And the big one has been Google, right? If Google distances themselves from Huawei, it means all the Huawei upcoming phones are not gonna be using Android, right? You could say that Huawei has their own software, but not using Android as your they'll be using Android, but not Google Android. All right, outside of China, that's gonna be a huge problem, right? It's easier in China because Google doesn't operate there. Most of their sites are blocked, but outside of China, it's gonna be a problem for Huawei to continue to operate without any problems, right? What else was the big issue here? I think everyone is still figuring out that situation, and then me as a person who is interested in technology, right, would like to see technology being developed, is that the right word? Wants to see technology continuing to go forward, right? I viewed that block as a restriction, right, to what we can achieve, because more companies operating in the US or wherever in the world, it means more competition, more innovation, more cool stuff for us, the consumers. And then I came across another article, which what was the name of the article again? Let me check the news. I think it was it up here? I think it's in the New York Post. Where is news? My Reddit is, I'm not used to using this Reddit from my laptop. I'm used to using this one in my phone, so it's a problem. What was the name of the article? Let me check my history. History. You. No. For Samsung other device. Man, this thing hasn't updated in a while. Man. Don't remember the name of the article now. But what I was reading was that with China, right? China is more complicated than you might think. And the blog, after knowing the things we know about China currently, the blog by the US makes a lot of sense. All right. And one could argue and say, actually, you'd want to, okay, I'm searching the camera now. You'd want to, I'm not sure if there was a button for restarting China, right? Not killing all the people, but their system, it's way complicated, right? So, you might not know this. My interest in technology has been something that has been with me since early childhood. So during weekends, me and my brothers would take all the electronics, radios, TVs, and whatever that was around, and we'll try to fix, if we're not fixing, and try to build something new. We never had spectacular projects, but we'd have maybe some fans and whatever. And I was that much interested in technology, right? So later on, my interest in technology wasn't that much in the engineering part, the building part of it, or the hardware part, but it was with softwares, right? So whatever the problem was with your phone, if it's software, from an early age I could be able to set it right for you, right? That wasn't much of a problem. So people would come to me if ever their phone has a problem with something, then I'll know what to do, right? That has been my primary interest. That's why I'm doing computer science. All right. So if you grow up with that sort of mentality, I even studied hacking right? I didn't even have a laptop at that time, so I've never actually hacked, but I've read a lot about hacking and how to do those stuff, right? So having learned that, I was sort of South Africa is in a state of there's it's a crime writing country, is that correct? So in places like Durban, Joburg, and even here in Cape Town, you can't just walk freely there with your camera equipment, for instance, and your phone maybe, and your laptop. So laptop bags, like your big bags that, well, you could see from far away that person is carrying a laptop. I problem then attract unwanted, what would you say? What do you call them? Unwanted. Man, English is difficult. What do you call a person who walks you? Alright, if let's say my friend was walking to the store, I'd walk with them. Okay, so my camera just stopped recording. So it's another one of those things as well. Why is I bought this memory card for 250 rands? That's a lot in South Africa, and it's supposed to record at 4K. It's not supposed to have any problems with read and write speeds because I'm recording at 1080p. 480 is 4 times 1080p, but it says the memory card stopped working because it has a slow write speed, which is a problem, man. Okay, so I was talking about a person who goes with you to some place. What was I talking about then, man? Shut. What was I talking about? What was my point? Okay, so that's reason number 10. I need a co-host, someone who will sort of remind me what I was talking about. I just went back now and remembered I was talking about crime, right? How you'd have people who accompany you whenever you're carrying that bag, having a laptop or wearing something nice shoes, nice watch. It's Durban, Joburg, and Cape Town, right? I haven't had a lot of instances where I was robbed, but I've had people tell me their experiences, right? So it's probably even been shooting in Cape Town, which is supposed to be safe, by the way. Cape Town is supposed to be the safest out of all the cities in South Africa, or the towns or cities, the city most, but it's not, right? So with all that crime, I was thinking the only thing that we could do to solve this would be to install surveillance cameras, right? So my memory card is just sick today. Memory card is just sick. Let me change it. Well, technology fails a lot these days, and when it fails you, it don't operate very what's this? It don't operate well when technology doesn't work as it's supposed to. Okay, let's get back to the story. Why is this taking so long, man? Okay, so my initial process or thought was that, okay, in South Africa we could implement, whenever we have enough money, implement AI street cameras, right? To make sure that all crimes that are committed in public areas, the perpetrators could be easily identified, and then well, that will be easier, or that will sort of deter people from committing crimes, knowing that they could be easily found or spotted, right? Like we could track, like is in movies, even their walking patterns, how they walk, and then when that person commits a crime, they are flagged. Then when they are spotted by another camera somewhere, and the police could then come and then get a hold of them, right? There's the easy and futuristic idea you might have to solving crime, and I think there is some truth to that, right? There is some way that could be used in order to make sure that society is safer or safe, right? But then there are countries like China who have implemented that into far forward, in a far forward way, futuristic way, right? One reason people are afraid of China, or countries are afraid of China, it might seem like Trump is what's this? It might seem that like Trump is crazy as he is with most topics, but on this one, he seems very he seems very spot on with his concerns, right? And here's the thing with this. Okay, so I found the article right during the time when I was busy. Was this week when I was busy fixing my SD card thing. So here's the article. It's by the New York Post. It says China's new social credit system is a dystopian nightmare, right? So the article talks about how this social rating system, right? So if ever you fail on a loan, you is it called fail? It's called default. You default on a loan, you break some sort of a contract, you talk what was this? You badmouth the public policy by the Communist Party, you blame the government or whatever. All of those things, you could get downgraded in terms of your rating, right? And then there are consequences to having a downgraded state, right? To being in a downgraded rating, to have a downgraded rating. Similar to the Black Mirror episode, there is a Black Mirror episode where there is such a let me check for the name. It's called social rating. Episode. Episode number 1. What's the name of it? But it's season 3, episode number 1. I think it's called Nosedive. Yeah, it's called Nosedive. Nosedive. That's the name of the episode, right? And it seems very futuristic, the things that happen there, but it seems that China is already there in terms of the technology, right? So if you're having a poor state rating, you can't get to flight, and then you can't get to flights. You could be flagged, right? So anyone in and around the area could know where you are, who you are, and then your picture. So by walking down the street, you are sort of humiliated. I think there is a map that shows where you are, who you are, even your ID, hiding only a few numbers. So basically you lose almost all privacy because you've defaulted on a contract of some sort, right? So their explanation for this is that they want to create what did they say they want to create? Culture of sincerity, and it will restore social trust. Culture of sincerity and it will restore social trust. ladies and gentlemen, that is what we call bullshit. Is that it? BS. Let's call it BS. Let's be nice here, because we're promoting a culture of sincerity and we want to restore social trust. What the fuck, man? Okay, so this thing, how we operate usually, okay, so in China it's Communist Party, it's difficult. Okay, so how we operate as humans right now, with the currencies that we have. So in South Africa we have rands. 10 rands is only worth 10 rands, because we believe, me and you, the person who's selling me something, and me, the person who's buying something, we believe that that 10 rand is worth 10 rands. Okay, so its value is the same as whatever that I'm getting from that person. It's because there is trust in the system and the system works, right? So what this says now, we want to promote a culture or restore social trust. What social trust are these people restoring? Because we already have that. It's a problem with communist societies, and it's something that I'm in the middle of studying. Sort of, I can't commend that much, right? But I can say, like listening to Jordan Peterson, one of the things we will say is that I think this goes both with social trust and culture of sincerity. What's this? So back in Russia, when those things were happening, there was this guy, Stalin, I think. Was it called Stalin? But what would happen there is that people didn't trust one another, right? So what would happen is that you had people lying to one another because they didn't know who was the spy or something like that. I'm not very right on that topic. Maybe by the end of this year, I'll be much more informed with regards to that. But that's what happened. People were lying most of the time because they didn't know who was a spy, so you can't tell the truth, right? Problem with lying is that nobody ends up knowing what's the truth, right? So this culture of sincerity, it's the same thing as that one. It creates that episode. If you watch that episode, it creates a society where you end up having to agree or having to do things to please people close to you, right? So that you could be rated, so that your rating could go up. That's what you do, right? So you avoid any public embarrassment, you avoid any speaking out against the crowd, and you avoid anything that would go against a lot of people, right? What that promotes is this sort of mentality that says, even though our notions haven't been discussed, we're sort of having to, okay, it's one thing where people don't necessarily debate or discuss core issues, but they just assume that everyone agrees on those issues, something like that, because you can't openly discuss it. Because now, if your view is opposed to mine and you find out that you are one person and there are 30 other people, it means that you are against society now. If you're against society, you're getting a low rating. If you're getting a low rating, it means you can't take flights. Instead of a 3-hour flight, you have a 30-hour train, right? And then people get to know your address, not the whole of your address, but they actually see your picture, could be humiliated on those billboards in public, right? That is a problem. That is an issue. And then the big problem with China is not like we can sort of switch them off, like close them off. Is that they are economically developing and they are one of the fastest growing countries, right? So if they're one of the fastest growing countries and their technology, what has been happening is that they've been stealing a lot. There are laws in terms of what's called IP. What was the thing? Intellectual property, right? There are laws in terms of intellectual property have been, what could I say? They have sort of encouraged companies from copying other companies around the world, right? So with that, it means that whatever product you may find around the world, China is gonna have their it's gonna have their own version of that product, right? And their government is behind it, sponsoring that, which means that they are growing very, very fast, right? And then what has happened with that is that everyone is afraid of them now, because if they're a giant economically, it's not like you can turn them off, because we depend on them for some resources, especially most of the resources, right? That's why some companies are opening up in India. So India is there is a video by Tech Alta, like cell phone companies are operating in India. Indian government is promoting or encouraging companies, giving them some sort of incentives to build or make their products in India, right? So China is very, very sophisticated, technologically speaking. And then another video I've just watched, it's called what is it called? Let me check my history. But I think it's something like why China is building the biggest why China is building the biggest city. So I didn't know this. So it's a video by Polymeter. It's called why is China building the world's biggest city. Hopefully I'll link it in the description below. So what is happening is in China there are these cities. I'm not sure if it's 3 or 2. There is Hong Kong, there is Macau, right? These cities were initially I think up until 1997 or something like that, occupied by Hong Kong was by Britain, then Macau was, I think, Netherlands, right? So those countries moved away from those cities and then they were given back to China, right? For them being given back to China, they were conditioned to say this country is going to be operating in its own, it's gonna be autonomous, it's gonna be given its own, it's gonna have its own autonomy, its own board, its own constitution, right? So it's gonna be operating on its own, other than for issues regarding defense and what, but those things, right? So I think that's why, because I was confused in the past years, that if China is this big bad country, how is it that I see a lot of people visiting Hong Kong? Turns out that Hong Kong doesn't necessarily operate the same way as China operates, right? So there is a plan, same thing as Macau as well. These places are very big in terms of exports, imports, and whatever. Do businesses around the world with almost all countries that are in the trade. So China is planning on combining these countries, these cities, and then also combining them with China, right? So that is sort of stripping away the freedoms that the people in these cities enjoy, right? That's what is happening as well. So what did I want to say about that? That is what is happening. So people are afraid that China is growing, is big, and China is this corrupt. Can you say corrupt? Don't want to say corrupt. Corrupt doesn't sound right. But their way of operating, it's not the same as, is not what you would want from a country, right? Because especially a country of that size, I think they have like 2 billion or something like that population, and they can and will dominate the world. So another thing was this. another thing, I want to say another thing with that social rating. So with social rating, there is also another problem, right? The big one, it's connected to this thing of lying, right? So they're saying that there is what, in order to improve your social rating, you'd have to report someone of committing a crime or something that is frowned upon. So things like your Christians praying or whatever, or Muslims or whatever religious group praying somewhere or in public or whatever, you'd have to report that. If you're reporting that, your credit score or your social rating will go up a bit, right? So that means whoever is watching you doing something will report you, right? It's a society where they want to promote trust, but people can't trust one another in that system, right? Because if you're gonna tell me that I'm not supposed to practice my religion, and if I practice my religion in my own private home, my neighbor, if he happens to see that, he's going to report in order to improve his system, his rating. That's hell, man. That's living in hell, actually. Not sure how. Thing is, you can't even hear the people of China how they think about this, because it's so closed. It's like there is this thing, they use firewall. So things like Facebook, YouTube, and whatever, they are closed there. And then was this, or they are restricted. They're not allowed to operate there. And then there was this. I'm sure. Yeah, I wouldn't think, man, you would be okay with operating in a country, with living in a country that does that, right? But you never know, because what the Chinese government, what they've been saying is that all the interferences by the Western community or the Western countries has been because the Western countries can't even begin to understand their level of sophistication or the level of solving problems, right? They can't understand it, right? So if one is saying you can't understand our system, they are closing you out in terms of that, even having that conversation, because you don't understand it. I'm not sure if there is even a way to understand it. If you don't understand it, then they mean that the people in the country, they understand it, and hence they agree. That's why it operates, which I don't think is the case, right? Yeah, man. This is one of the ways that technology can go bad, and this is going to be fully implemented in 2020, right? So also I've said that in China's ancient tradition implies absolute God and part of his subject. There is a book called 1984 by George Orwell. I think it predicts this sort of this thing happening, right? It's one author that I'm going to have to read in the near future, as I was doing with I've been reading Dostoevsky, who is a good writer at best, the best actually. So yeah, that's it about China. So speaking of Black Mirror as well, I watched a similar episode, and it's similar to the credit rating. So it's called White Christmas, where people can block one another. Man, that has in real life where you'd be able to block. So you can block me from talking to you. So if ever we're meeting, I just see a blurry white silhouette of some sort, then you will also see that if ever I talk to you, you won't hear what I'm saying, right? That's a problem with blocking. And some other guy was red, sort of. So if you read, you blocked off from everyone. You blocked off from everyone. How do you operate if you can't talk to anyone in the world? Man, yeah, technology has a dark place, right? And Black Mirror has done an incredible job in terms of demonstrating how dark a place you can actually go with technology. And you might think that man, that's just fiction and whatever, but if you're thinking of China, it's exactly what that guy was. I'm not sure if it's a guy or girl who wrote that episode, but it's exactly what the directors or the people who made that episode were depicting. It's the same thing that's happening in China right now. Alright, people are, or sort of are, encouraged to act fake in public in order to make sure that everyone in public, in a public setting, is comfortable with having them around. It means that you have to fake smiles when we're in public because we might get a lower rating, right? Yeah, man, it's a problem, a big one, and it's one of those things where you just don't know how you could help if ever you wanted to help in some way. There is no way you could help, right? Because that is a country and it has investments all over the world. I was checking now the investments they have in South Africa because I'm concerned with my country, obviously, checking how how we could be affected by these things. It doesn't seem that they have much. In total they have like 14.15 billion US dollars, which goes to something like, what's 14 squared? 12 squared is 144. 14 squared will be 2 by 12, 2 by 12. I don't know, but something there. 13 squared is 169. 14 squared is supposed to be 196. Let's check. 14 squared. Where is the button now? Not used to using. Yeah, it's 196, right? So, but 196 is a huge amount, man. So what I'm concerned about is their effects on our country, in terms of our policies and in terms of the way the country is governed, right? Although the president of South Africa right now has sort of what did he say, that guy? Assured the public that it won't get to that in any way, right? That guy is a businessman, so you trust that he read the contracts and whatever. Thing is, with the investments of China in Africa, it's a lot of concerns because yes, we need those investments, and if anyone is concerned, they should be investing themselves instead of country like China. But if they're not investing, who else can you turn to instead of China, right? And there's this country called Djibouti, which means dark blue. I didn't even know about this country. It's here in Africa. It's next to Ethiopia. It's Djibouti, right? It's one of the poorest countries in Africa, and one of my concerns, and I think it's a lot of other people's concerns as well is that most of these countries that are being borrowed money by China, they're going to end up being in debt and struggling to pay that debt to China, which is going to be a problem, because if you're in debt, it means that that person sort of controls you, which is what we don't want. It's the same thing with Nigeria as well. And I don't want to talk a lot about debts there, but China investing in Nigeria. Nigeria is one of the biggest countries. I think it's the biggest country in South Africa, not in South Africa, in Africa. And they are, technologically, it's one of the countries that has a lot of potential, right? So you wouldn't want that to be influenced in any way by a communist party like the one ruling China, right? Yeah, it's those concerns. Yeah, it's a big problem, man. It's a big problem. I was thinking with Hong Kong and Macau being sort of, being taken back by China. I was thinking with Lesotho, how did it happen that Lesotho and Swaziland became countries within a country? Who even allowed that to happen? Because, okay, thing is, these countries are poor. Not that poor, but poor compared to South Africa. Alright, so I was thinking if these countries were as developed as whatever, and maybe if they were heavens to say, South Africa would be doing the same thing. We would be looking for ways to just take them in. Because why are they here in the first place? Why do we have a monarchy? I think it's a monarch. I think the leader in Swaziland is the king, I think. Why do we have that here inside our country? Why couldn't we just take care of that and have that as the whole country of South Africa? But the thing is, it comes with a lot of problems. These people are not rich. There is no rich economy. So that's why South Africa is not motivated to do that, I would think. Alright? That's what I'm thinking. Now I want to colonize countries. Let's stop the recording somewhere here. Okay, man, I'm hungry now. I ate bread, but I'm hungry again. Nah, shit. So other than colonizing countries, what else do I want to talk about now? What else do I want to talk about? 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 Oh, Game of Thrones. It was the last episode of Game of Thrones. It was the last episode of Game of Thrones. We will miss Game of Thrones. We will miss Game of Thrones. It was one of the biggest shows in television. One of the biggest in the century. And we ain't even 20% into the thing. Game of Thrones was the nicest thing ever written by anyone. Man, that show. Okay, season 8 wasn't that exciting because the writers made a lot of mistakes with their writing. Right? They made a lot of mistakes. But if you're treating this as an artistic endeavor of some sort, it was an artistic feel. I found a video where someone says, Well, Game of Thrones was created by this guy, George R. Martin, and it was completed sort of. There are no books, so these guys had to write something for the final two the final two was the final two what? 2 seasons. They had to write their own stories of some sort. Right? So what happened was people have been angry since season 7 that the storytelling with Game of Thrones has changed. They've sort of character development, and it's called character arcs or whatever. So people haven't been happy with some characters, and also some other what's this, payoffs for some scenes, right? So showed scenes where there is no payoff. So it's been a lot. People have analyzed the thing a lot. It's like I know a lot about writing while I don't know anything pertaining to writing. But with watching YouTube videos, how people complain and how they would have written the episodes differently, I've sort of got an insight to that thing. Alright, someone is nearby in the toilet, so it's gonna cause a lot of noise. So what did I want to say? Where was that going? Oh, I've been saying that season 8 was not well written, but I was hoping that the ending is what George R. Martin has, right? Because if it's that, it's gonna be satisfying in some way. And I could say that the ending wasn't bad, so it was sort of satisfactory. Oh, when I was talking about this being an artistic endeavor of some sort, so the guy, I watched one video where the guy said, if you are not happy with the way Game of Thrones was going and the storyline and whatever, just know that as this is an artistic form of some sort, you are allowed in some way to have your own conclusions. You're allowed to have the story going your way, how you would have done things, to believe that as the way things actually happened, because a Game of Thrones is a story, right? And it became sort of a personal story for everyone. Everyone personally has their way of looking at Game of Thrones, if you know what I mean. So if it's like that, then everyone is allowed to finish the story their way, right? And that gave me some ease of heart, right? So I was looking at this saying, okay, this is how D&D wrote or finished this season. They don't have the absolute authority to say the way they ended the things is the sort of absolute way of ending things, right? So with watching like that, it gives you ease with whatever mistakes that these guys make, right? So season 8 ended, and Bran sort of, no one actually took the throne, right? So I voted on Reddit, and it was nobody wins the throne. That's how I voted, and that turned out to be true. Nobody actually won the throne, but Bran ended up being the king, right? But he didn't win the throne. Nobody won the throne. Nobody wins the throne. We won there. And then Jon Snow didn't get the 7 kingdoms, didn't get to be king of the 7 kingdoms. It's because he didn't want, maybe he didn't want it, and also he didn't have the ambition to sit in that throne. I would think he was qualified, but he wasn't ambitious, right? That episode wasn't bad. That final episode, how they ended things, it wasn't bad. And thing like Game of Thrones, to wrap it up, to wrap up all of the storylines is kind of difficult. It's not like Game of Thrones had one single character that you could follow. It's a lot of different characters struggling with a lot of their own issues. So it was a hard job that those guys had to wrap that thing up. They did a quick, dirty job with it in season 8, but they did it. That's the important thing, right? I'm very happy to be alive in this time where Game of Thrones was finished. And also, although I didn't get to see it live, there is another series that is as big or as good, one could argue even more better than Game of Thrones, but depends on who you are. It's called Breaking Bad. Man, that series as well is one of the best things ever written or ever be on television, right? I'm very happy about Game of Thrones. I'm not sure if I'm gonna repeat the thing. Unlikely that I'll repeat it, because I've seen it twice or 3 times now, the whole thing. So nope, I'm not gonna repeat it. I'm not going to repeat it. I'm not going to repeat it. Yeah, let's move on, man. I wanted to add another segment in this episode or in this podcast. It's gonna be called Down the Reddit Hole, right, where I find some funny post on Reddit for the week. Might be just one post or a few posts, then I refer you to it, sort of. That's what I want to try and do, right? To have down the Reddit hole. I think I'm gonna start next week having that segment fully operational. Yeah. What else? Okay, so it's 9 plus 10, 11, that's 20 plus 30, so I have 15 minutes now. I can officially end this episode. I'm hungry, fuck. Okay, so there is one last thing I wanted to talk about. This shouldn't take long. There's one concerning thing. So if you've been to social media, like your, is it concerning or confusing? Your Facebook, Instagram, Tinder, or whatever, right? If you were honest, which gender uses the phrase or the term independent a lot? Between the two genders, is it males or females? I think the answer there is obvious. Females use the thing independent a lot more often, which has led me to conclude that when females are born, they are not actually independent. Females are not born independent, right? When you are born as a female, you are born dependent on some male figure of some sort. has to be a male figure. One could argue and say when children are born, they need to be taken care of by their moms, dads, or parents, and that's who one depends on. Most of their, I think, up to 21 and whatever, but to find that some people, even after that, they are busy. Even after that, after that, males become independent, and then somehow females, it's not obvious for them that they are independent, so they become dependent in some way. So society just assumes that when I see a lady walking, she must be dependent on some male figure. That's why she's walking the way she's walking. That's why she is who she is. It's because she's dependent on some male figure. That's my immediate assumption. Because females can't be independent. Can't be just inherently independent. They have to depend on some male figure. Alright, that is why that females find it necessary to always say on these platforms that they are independent. It's because everyone in society sort of assumes that they are not independent. Okay, so I can talk BS if I like it. But why else would a person write independent? I fail to understand that one. Right? That independent thing that ladies write and like writing a lot. Why do we have to say? Who assumed that you are not independent? Right? Do I assume that seeing a person somewhere that they assume that they have some sort of a female person that they depend on, or a male person that they depend? It's like women or not women. Some females are trying too hard, right? Who assumes that in the first place? Who even thinks like that? Who thinks dependent, independent, or whatever? You could say maybe if I see a white boy driving a cool car while he's still doing first year, I could say that no, his parents are rich, he's dependent on his parents. But it's not something that we'll use as a social status of some sort to say I'm dependent, I'm independent. Why would you even do that? Yeah, I don't understand why ladies do that. So there was this funny post on Facebook where a lady posted a guy and said, if ever someone sees this guy and whatever, tell them to pay maintenance for the child and whatever, child support. And then someone spotted that in their description it's written independent woman. Man, that was funny, boss. Because why would you say independent? Why would you even use that? I fail to understand, man, why people say that thing. And it's funny to me. Who assumes in the first place that you are not independent? Because one has to assume independence, otherwise the situation shows that no, the contrary is true. If the situation doesn't show that the contrary is true, it's sort of assumed that you are independent, right? Yeah, it's one of those things that I found funny this week, thinking about. Obviously, it was not well written or said. Okay, yeah, I think I'm done now. What other big thing do I want to talk about? There was this drama, James Charles, Tati, Jeffree Star. I'm not gonna talk about that thing. I think they're sorting it out in private, which is a very, very good thing, man. It's a very, very good thing. Okay. It's been so much this year. It's been nice talking to you, and hopefully we'll talk again next time. Yeah, that's been it. We'll talk again next time. We'll talk again next time. We'll talk again next time. We'll talk again next. Is that right? Next time we'll talk again. Next time we'll talk again. Next time we'll talk again. Next time. Okay. Next time we'll talk again. Next time we'll talk again. Next time we'll talk. Always. Okay, that's been it. We'll talk again next time. So much you see. Peace. Have a terrific week. Is that a correct way to say? Peace. Have a nice week. Talk to you in the next podcast. Now you can switch off the thing.